Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Last Best Hope for Conversation, your Babylon 5 podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jesse Jackson. I am in the war room with Lou.
Good morning, everyone.
Karen.
Hello.
And we are all set back. We are starting the third season of Babylon 5. But before that, we've got to spend a little bit of time talking about Babylon 5, The Road Home. 2 weeks ago, when we were recording this, JMS on his Patreon page, which I am part of, said, look, something big's coming. I'm going to try to tell you guys before it breaks. And he did. The official word broke out about 9:30 California time, and a few minutes before that, maybe an hour, he sent to us patrons like, okay, here's the deal. We are done. There is a fully animated, voiced Babylon 5 movie with as many of the original cast as possible. The next week, they released Travel Across the Galaxy with Kosh and Sheridan as he unexpectedly finds himself transported through multiple timelines and alternate realities in a quest to find his way back home. Along the way, he reunites with some familiar faces while discovering cosmic new revelations about the history, purpose, and meaning of the universe, including not only Bruce Boxleiter is back, Claudia Christian as Susan Ivanova, Peter Jurassic as Londo Malaria, Bill Mummy as Lanier, Tracy Scoggins as Elizabeth Lockley, and Patricia Tallman as Lita Alexandra. And then they announce other guests, other actors who will fill parts of characters who, sadly, the actor who originated the role has moved on to the next world. You guys can't watch this.
Nope.
Till we're finished. But any thoughts on getting new Babylon 5 episodes, Lou?
Is this animated movie the return of Babylon 5 that he was talking about? Or because I was under the impression that we were getting a new series. So is that still in the works?
Yes, that is still in the works. We are waiting they are waiting for the new bosses of CW to make the decision.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So they go forward. Yeah, so this was totally something different.
Yeah, nice bonus for sure.
Yeah, it is a nice bonus. I did laugh at him. He's always funny on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And someone tweeted, wow, it would have been nice to get a theatrical release, because I guess this is going to be direct-to-video, direct-to-demand.
Right.
And JMS tells the story, and it's an old joke, but it's a great joke. There was a mom walking with her son, and a tidal wave comes, grabs the son, and pulls him out to the ocean. And the mom screams in anguish and starts praying to God, please bring my son back, bring my son back, bring my son back. And all of a sudden a wave comes, hits the shore, and the child is there. And she hugs him, and then she looks at God. He had a hat.
I've heard variations of
Be grateful for what you got.
Yeah,
absolutely. He says the movie is completely drawn.
Mm-hmm.
It's animated. It is scored. It is ready to go. They are waiting on when they're going to give a release date. I'm hoping for June 3rd as a great birthday present for me.
Oh, that soon?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be that quick. I don't think it will be, but you would think it'd be in the fall. So I think it's very cool.
I see in the article, it says it suggested it'll debut at the San Diego Comic-Con July 20th.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to debut there. Yeah. He did share the story that Bruce Boxleiter went to him and said, is it good? Does it fulfill the legacy?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, Bruce, let's watch it, because they were doing the auto commentary.
Okay.
And he said, Bruce, quit he had to keep nudging him to talk because he was so engrossed in the movie. So yeah, so
Cool.
he thinks it's really good. JMS says it's everything you want in a Babylon 5 series. So I think it's very cool. I'm very excited. And yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm just a little concerned about, because me and Karen haven't finished the series. Is this going
No,
to
we can't watch it.
spoil things, or do we have to wait till the
Oh
series
yeah,
is
you've definitely got to wait
Oh,
because
crap.
there is a
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it takes place after the series, so
Yeah.
we get to wait.
Yeah, I was hoping it was something that was like happening parallel to at some point in the series, but
After I watch it, and if that is the case, I will tell you guys.
Yeah.
But no, I think based on one of the characters that's listed, I would think it is not something you guys should watch yet.
Okay, darn it. Getting back to your original question about what I thought about it, think about it. It sounds like it's a very much like the final episodes of TNG, All Good Things, where Picard is going back through time. So maybe this is JMS's revenge for all the complaints about DS9 ripping off Babylon 5. I don't know. But I think the main thing for me will be, what style of animation are they using? Are they trying to make it like not photorealistic, but realistic in terms of how the characters look and whatnot? There's a still shot of the Babylon 5 station, which looks pretty similar to what we've been watching on the show. So that'll be interesting. And I'm wondering how they've animated it in terms of movement in that. Like, I remember, what's that movie that they did for the, and I can't remember the author's name now, Philip K. Dick's one with Keanu Reeves. I can't remember the name of that one now, but that was rotoscoped, and it looked pretty good. So if they're doing that for this, it would be pretty cool to see. And of course, it'll be interesting to hear the actors, the new voices for the characters that have passed away: Delenn, Jakar, Garibaldi, Dr. Franklin, Sinclair, and I guess Zathras, the actor who played him, has passed as well. So it'll be interesting. Yeah. But
Was that Johnny Mnemonic?
yes. No. Was it Johnny Mnemonic? No, I don't think so. Unless does it say Keanu Reeves is in it?
Yeah, Keanu Reeves is in that.
And was
Let me check.
who else is in it? Keanu
I don't know.
Reeves, Philip K. Dick. Because if you check out the animation style in that movie, that was pretty cool.
It was.
Scanner Darkly. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Oh, Scanner Darkly. Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Yeah. And who else was in that? Robert Downey Jr., Rory Cochrane.
Yeah, that was almost an aha take on me, almost kind of.
Yeah.
Graphic. Very graphic.
Winona Ryder's in it. Yeah. It's worth checking out too. It's a pretty cool story. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm just worried that me and Karen won't be able to watch it for a while.
Yeah. That was the first thought I had, is it sounds amazing. I'm really excited, except I won't be able to watch it. So yeah, that's the only downside to it, is that it's coming out now when I won't be able to watch it. Yeah. I'm happy about it though. I think it's awesome that he gets to continue on with more stories.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's wonderful, and I'm excited to see where they do. And I will let you guys know if there is a chance you can watch it. But if not, we'll just add that to the end of the discussion.
Jesse, since you've watched the series, does the synopsis of this jibe with you with the ending of the series? Is there room for what this story seems to be doing, or is it just like sort of an addition to the finale of the series?
So if you want to be if you're a new Babylon 5 listener or watcher and you want to be totally no spoiler free, jump ahead about 2 minutes. I'm not giving spoilers in story, but I'm giving spoilers in the reality. And I think we talked about this before. They were not sure they were going to have a 5th season. So they filmed the final episode called Sleeping in Light at the end of the 4th season. And then they were renewed. They had to film, they then filmed 5, and then they plugged in as the final episode the one they'd already written and filmed. So this could either take place after Sleeping in Light because it's a time travel story, or it could be between sometime after the fifth season ends in real time, because Babylon 5, every season is a year, until that, because Sleeping in Light jumps ahead multiple years from when the last filmed episode of the fifth season, you jump ahead multiple years and shows where everyone ends up, hence ending in light.
One thing, the season 3 episode, what we're going to talk about, happens 1 week after the end of season 2.
Yeah. Okay. That's one of the things we'll talk about is Stravinsky wanted, he said, because so many times TV series have this no sense of time, he wanted every season to be a year. Right. And so we got right that we saw that last episode, Susan was celebrating Hanukkah. They were talking about the year. And now then, yes, this episode that we're talking about in a few minutes is the beginning of the new year. So, yeah.
Yeah. The final thing I'll say about that, there's 2 things. I'll say that I just hope that this doesn't turn into a greatest hits retrospective where they go through, because it's animated, they can go through the whole series history and just recreate scenes. So I'm a little worried about that. I hope it's not just that, but I also think it's a nice way to pay homage to all the actors that are no longer with us. And this is really the only way that you could do it. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. And because I do think he has talked about on his Patreon page and in Twitter that he's grown as a writer. He has spent more time. And so that's why he said that if he gets the chance to do Babylon 5 reboot, that he would tell different stories because he's changed as a writer. He's grown. He has more skills. He has more arrows in his quiver, whatever metaphor you want to use. And so he would tell a new story similar to set in the Babylon 5 universe, retelling that story. And he has said that he has no interest in just doing he has not used the words, but it implied just doing the greatest hits. I know there's an interview with Aaron Sorkin that when they hired him to write a play on To Kill a Mockingbird, that his first few drafts was just the greatest hits of the movie. And he realized that he needed to go a totally different way to tell that story, or else it would just be, why don't we just watch the movie? This is just a snippets of it. So I have faith that he'll want to tell new stories and new discussions. So it'll be good, I think. At least that's the hope. Okay. All right. We will continue to track that. I'm sure. I know that often animated shows, everyone records their dialogue separately. Like, right. I know my hope is at least a few of them got to be in the room together and got to break bread, have the beverage of their choice, and tell play some stories and got to play back and forth, because this cast did have a good chemistry. And based on stories, the cast and crew all ate lunch together. There was a closeness. And one of the things JMS prides himself on is whether you're the grip, the makeup person, or the lead actor, if you come with a story note and if it's a good note, he took it because he wanted them all to have that pride. Okay, cool. Moving on. We are hitting the third season, Matters of Honor. It originally aired November 6, 1995. A small colony is attacked by the Shadows. It is the location of a ranger training base. Marcus Cole goes to Babylon 5 to get help. Sheridan and DeLynn embark on a mission to help the Rangers in the newly built White Star. Meanwhile, EarthForce sends a representative to find out more about the ship that destroyed Lieutenant Keffer. I pulled out my Babylon 5 script book, and JMS talked about that at the end of season 2 wrap party, the actor who played Keffer was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And Stravinsky's, "Oh, yeah. Oh, look, I've got to go somewhere there." He said that the actor was absolutely a joy to work with, that he was on time every day. He had his parts. He was enthusiastic. It just was not a character he wanted to add. He didn't think he needed in the storyline. And so that's why he released him in this way. But he felt bad for the actor because it was not him. It was just the suits trying to put someone on.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking about that last time. So he did feel bad about the actor.
Skylab.
Yes, exactly.
Look that way.
Yeah. He actually said, "Ooh, look, they put out cake." Because he's talking about at the party. So very close to that, Karen. Let's start with you, Luke. Quick thoughts about the episode, and what do you think of the new introduction?
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was surprised that it was Susan doing the voiceover for this. So that's interesting. Generally, I don't know if this is going to continue, but each season the show just looks a little more slicker, a little more money on the screen. They've obviously enhanced some sets. Franklin gets a new sick bay. And like even the scene between Sheridan and Koss was like the Arboretum looked better. I don't know if it's just that because they have existing sets and they're able to spruce them up a little bit every year. It just makes the show look more realistic. And there seem to be more extras in every scene, like any crowd scene. So it just seems more fleshed out. And I just thought that, it looks better every season. And like the White Star looked really cool. So all of that stuff looks really good. And again, I don't know if it's just because of my Blu-ray player and my TV, but the upscaling, it just makes the show look so much better than when I watch it on my computer screen. So it looks really good. Like the special effects don't take me out of it at all anymore. But I am curious as to why Susan's getting the narration this season, the voiceover narration, because maybe I'm just used to other shows where the lead would always do the narration, the voiceover. So yeah, it looks good. And it made it really fun to dive back into the series because of that, and my immersion was increased across the board.
Karen?
Agreed. I am still wondering why they upgraded MedLab. Is it just because they had more of a budget for it? But it was like, hey, look, a new MedLab. They didn't have to say that. He could have just been normal and it would have looked fine. But I did enjoy the fact that things looked better and everything looked a little darker, which I think is good for a sci-fi show. You know, if you put a lot of light on a sci-fi show, it shows everything. And for it to be a little darker, The Next Generation was dark all the time. It just had this kind of like maybe a black wash over everything. And I felt that for the first time in this series, there was just a little less brightness to it. And it also gives atmosphere to the show as well. But yeah.
They definitely went with that on Picard season 3, and that was really dark.
Yeah, it was.
A little too dark for my taste, but
got to turn up the contrast on your TV. But this was just regular dark. It wasn't super extra.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed the look of season 3. I'm sure you guys can guess another thing that I liked about this episode, because I am a cougar. Although both Bruce Boxleitner and Jason Carter are silver foxes now. They both look great now, but it's nice to have another guy I can drool over.
Oh, Marcus.
In the episode. Marcus. Not only is he very attractive, but he's got an English accent, which, I mean, that ups the factor for me. So it was cool to see him. And I can see why maybe JMS was cool about adding Marcus, because he is not a pretty boy. He is a ranger. We needed a ranger this season. Is he a ranger? Is that the...
Yep.
Okay,
Yep, that
thank
is
you.
correct.
I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure I wasn't misspeaking.
No.
And I think they needed this to have kind of that connection for him and for it to be static, for him to have a certain contact and not just Rangers coming and going. So it makes sense. It's cool. I saw him in the opening credits and I thought, all right, awesome. And we got Zach again, and we got those credits that are almost like the Love Boat credits where everybody looks to the side and then they go,
Yes.
they turn their head into the camera. And that was a big, like the Love Boat thing when you saw the little, what was it? A
Porthole. Yeah. Yeah. The
a
window portal.
Yeah. Yeah. So you saw the person's face and they would go, hi, and they would turn their head to the camera. So yeah, that kind of made me giggle a little bit that everyone's like all serious looking at the camera. And even Veer, he kind of tilts his head a little bit and he looks super serious. I like the opening. I like that Ivanova did the opening credits. Like Lou, I wouldn't mind knowing why she does it, but I'm cool with them changing it. You know, the wording is also changed. So yeah, a great start to a new season.
And it was funny that Susan was the only character that smiled as she turned to the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody else
Right?
was serious.
And she's happy that she got the narration.
Narration.
Yeah. The Babylon Project was our last best hope for peace. It failed. But in the year of the Shadow War, it became something greater. Our last best hope for victory. The year is 2260. The place, Babylon 5. I love that beat where our last best hope for peace, because we've heard that so often and then it failed. And really well done with the graphics that are being showed. But I love the idea in the year of the Shadow War, we're flat saying we're hitting the Shadow War this year. It came something greater, our last best hope for victory. I love the fact that they changed the narration every year. They changed the greeting, and I thought it was a nice twist to having Susan, right? Because the first year, it's the lead, the captain of the ship says it. We change captains, so it makes sense that we'd have the new captain doing it. And then this third year, wait a minute, we're just not having Bruce say new lines, makes it pretty interesting. So yeah, I love that. And I'm sure that Claudia Christian was so happy to hear it. Yeah. Lou, your thoughts on Marcus, our new ranger?
It's funny that in this post Lord of the Rings world, he instantly reminded me of Aragorn or Viggo Mortensen. So that was like, oh, yeah, that's a ranger. Yeah, that's not the ranger I was thinking of, but that's the way a ranger in my head looks like. So I got quite a chuckle out of that. And he's made an impression in the first episode that he's in. He doesn't have a lot of screen time and he doesn't have a lot of dialogue either, but there was that nice scene between him and Susan where he talks about his brother and the fact that he keeps his promises. We've established certain baselines for that character that I'm interested to see where they're going to go with him looking forward. I almost thought in a way this must be the replacement for Keffer, because he's representing the Rangers, whereas Keffer was representing the pilot. I thought that was interesting. I didn't know if he was a network requested actor, but that doesn't sound like it. I guess JMS really does want, as Karen said, a face of the Rangers, which I think is good. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in him and I want to see more of what he's all about in future episodes.
I loved his appearance. I love his story about the badge, the Ranger badge, supposedly through holy water, Minbari blood, human blood, him wanting that back so much. It meant so much to him. And I love the fighting pike. I just think that is such a cool weapon. It's this little nub, and then you push it, and it opens up.
Their answer to a lightsaber.
Yes, it is. And it was really nice. I love how his interaction with Lanier and Delenn, people drink. That's why we're here. So my thought was, why did you pick somewhere? That's my little nitpick. Like, why did you pick someplace you're going to leave right away?
He wanted to prove to them that he knew about the Minbari by not ordering alcoholic drinks.
Yeah, I think so. You would think just being a ranger would be enough, but it was really well done. I did think it's funny. He's the newcomer, and after the fight, he goes, "Follow me." I guess this is this.
He knew where he wanted
Yeah,
them to go, right?
and I
Yeah.
think this is the part of the station where neither Delenn nor Lanier visit much, and he had already explored. Yeah, I love Marcus as a character. I think he has just enough little that twinkle in his eye, a little he's a troubled soul, but at the same time is not afraid of saying a little snark. He fits in right away.
I just hope he's not too serious all the time. I hope he has a bit of a sense of humor. That's probably the only thing that's lacking at the moment.
Not a spoiler to say you will not be disappointed.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's
Excellent.
yeah, he
Yeah,
is.
it gives me Han Solo vibes a little bit.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Sheridan talking to Kosh. And the episode really, it starts with the little showing Marcus going to Babylon 5, but after credits, we get John trying to talk to Kosh, and Kosh being the very vague person that he always is. So I'll start with you, Lou. Give me your thoughts on that discussion.
I think I should let Karen go on this one.
Okay,
first.
Karen, let's go.
You do?
That's fine.
Okay, he made a lot of good points, John, saying, why did you show yourself? How do I know you're the same being inside that suit? And Kosh being a dick, honestly, especially that last little thing before he turns his back on Sheridan for the last time. He turns his back like 3 times on him, but John says something like, I don't remember exactly, but he says, "You're very confusing, and you confuse me," or something like that. And he turns and he goes, "Good." And I'm like, you are such an ass. So yeah, it was right up there with how Kosh is, I think. And I feel like Sheridan is almost losing patience with him, her, whatever it is. And I'm thinking he feels like he wishes he didn't have to have any conversations with this dude at all. I like that little interaction, but you can really see how Sheridan is getting frustrated with him. And again, Kosh is just, I have to shake my head about Kosh because dude. And we did talk about this in the last episode discussion, but he's still just as confusing to me. We know what he is projected to those people now, what he quote unquote looks like, but it still is there's a lot of, he's an enigma, I'll put it that way. And I feel like
an enigma wrapped in a riddle.
Wrapped in a riddle.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so I still have the same kind of curiosity about him. And again, good storytelling.
Yeah, I think Karen's nailed it pretty well. The only thing I found interesting was Kosh mentioned that his appearance drained him and that he had to go into the ship and regenerate. And I was thinking, was he drained because he has to generate so many different images all at the same time? And why is he doing that? He's hiding his true nature. So like we've seen him, but I don't think we've really seen him yet. And I don't know if we ever will, but that will be interesting to find out. And it just tickled my memory now, or I just made this connection, is because Sheridan says, I don't know how it came about, but Kosh says, I've always been here and so have you. And now I'm just thinking about this animated movie where Sheridan's going to be traveling through time. So maybe that's something that maybe this was like the hook that JMS is using to launch, or as the launch for that movie. I don't know, but that would be interesting to see.
I hadn't thought about that. That's good. So I will tell you one of the things since we got the reveal, I always go, there's angel wings on back of his encounter suit. I'm like, was just hiding the fact in pure light? I remember in pure sight, right? Not light. Let's talk about a Freudian pun. But I never thought of them as wings until I saw this. And now every time I see the back of the suit, I go, there are wings. Do either one of you agree?
Yeah, but the strongest image for me is still that Carol Burnett Gone with the Wind sketch.
Yeah. Same.
I saw it in the window and I
Huge
just
shoulder
had to have
pads.
it.
That's right.
Looks like a curtain rod.
And the line, I have always been here again. What a tool.
See him.
Did we?
Yes, that's the question, right? Along with what these ages, the second, third age of man, I still don't know when we're ever going to find out about that.
I love how Karen has, I won't say turned on the Vorlon, but she has at least adjusted her thoughts. Like, man, and I love that. I think it's so well done and perfect.
I don't know that I ever loved the Vorlons.
Yeah.
But now I'm really like super frustrated with them.
But they gave you what you wanted.
No, they didn't. They didn't, though. They showed.
Yeah, wanting's not the same as having.
That's true. That's true. But he had a hat. Yeah, I guess I'm glad that we at least saw an idea of why he thought that everyone would recognize him. I get that. We have some resolution, but
there was also, this is a side note, but if any of you don't follow JMS on Twitter, he retweeted, there was some, I think it's Asian or Far East, it was a dance version. There was a clip of people dancing and the main person had wings that looked like a shadow ship. And it is worth looking because he joked that it was a interpretive dance of the first battle between the Shadows and the Vorlons. So it is worth looking at from that perspective. And he also tweeted, if you go to Zahadun, you will dance versus you will die.
Nice.
Yeah. Let's talk about the shadow ship. Someone comes from Earth government. We got a great discussion between Susan and John where he says, I hate being cheered up. It's depressing. So she says, so in that case, we're all going to die horribly painful, lingering deaths. And John goes, thank you. I feel so much better. Mm-hmm. I love their relationship. I love that there is no hint of romance. Too often your male and female leads, they try to force that. This is just pure, she's his captain. She is his second in command, his number one, to use the words from Star Trek. And they love and respect each other in such a good way. I have been lucky enough to have bosses like that and to have employees like that. And I just think it's a wonderful relationship. So we get this guy and he's coming to find out like what is going on with this mysterious ship. And that is one of the main storylines of this episode. So let's talk about that. All the little, and however you want to take it, Lou, that meeting with each ambassador. Once again, we show that Minbari can lie, even though the theory, the legend is Minbaris can't lie. And as Londo said, that is BS. So Lou, take it wherever you want to go.
Technically, she didn't lie because that was the first time she saw that ship. That was interesting, and it's always fun when you see an actor. You go, I know that guy, and I didn't know it was Tucker Smallwood is his name, but I've seen him in a ton of things, and he's again, it's just another sign, a good sign to me that the show's got more money to spend on better guest stars because everybody is up to the level of the top actors in the show now, and so there's not this big range between the regulars and the guest stars. So I'm really glad to see that, and his journey through the space station, talking to everybody, just reinforces or puts in context where all these various races are sitting in terms to what they think or know about the Shadows. And the best scene was obviously the one with Jakar and he keeps on pulling out that book and turning to the page in that. So that's pretty cool. But it was interesting that Indawi, I guess that was the character's name that Tucker was playing, he dismissed his view of the ship above all the others. And of course, then we have Londo, which seems to be another extension maybe of his death day, or whatever, that with the potential invasion of his home world by the shadows. So that was interesting to see as well.
So I'm going to interrupt you there just because our listeners will. That's two different. He's had a dream and he's had a vision of his death. Two separate dreams or visions.
Okay.
So
my bad.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. I just wanted to. I know someone will correct us. Yeah. So he has had a dream of him standing at, he assumes, Centauri Prime, seeing all these ships, and he did not know what the shadow ships looks like. No one did. And then he has had this separate vision where Jakar chokes him to death. So
yeah,
return.
And I'm thinking now that I wish that scene had actually taken place before he had talked to Morden about breaking their relationship, because that would have given now just a little extra oomph. I understand why he wants to break the relationship, because he's having second thoughts or whatnot, but I think that would have been good to reveal before he had that meeting with Morden. But that's not the way they decided to do it, so we'll just have to take it the way it was done. And do you want me to continue with that character all the way to the end of the episode, or do we want to save that last scene on Earth till the end?
So let's wait to the end. Karen, your thoughts. By the way, I also want us to, let's also go back after Karen talks. I want to talk about Londo's reaction to trying to end things with Morden and finding out that now then Rifa is involved. And there was, I thought, I'll save my thoughts. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah. First of all, I thought that guy was going to be a bad guy. And from the end scene, I think they're keeping him out of the loop. So I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he's just doing his job. Like Lou said, I've seen him in a gazillion things. He was in The Next Generation. He was in Enterprise. He was in even down to Seinfeld and things like that. Will and Grace. He's been in everything. So it was cool to see him in this. And like Lou said, they're getting actors that are way up on the list of character actors. It's character actors that you know, which is different than guys off the street almost who have never had a job. This is a veteran character actors. I thought that was cool. I also thought it was interesting. I don't think that Delenn lied 100%. There's that fine line between lying and telling the truth. And he didn't ask, have you seen this ship? Essentially, he asked, do you recognize this ship? And she did recognize the ship. She just hadn't seen it in person. So she's definitely walking that line of not exactly telling the truth, but not exactly lying either. That was interesting. And seeing everyone's reaction to him asking them this question. Morden's in this episode as well, but it gave me that vibe of Morden going around saying, what do you want? And everybody giving their own answer and their own reaction to it. It's cool that they do that with all of the ambassadors that he talked to. Delenn did a really good job of schooling her features, I thought, and giving that answer that she hadn't seen that ship. Then we have Londo, who is visibly shaken by it and lying. But I honestly, if it were me asking that question, I would think that was super fishy, because he did have a reaction to it. And Jakar just completely, he's not as shaken as he feels vindicated that, yes, that we've been told that this race is going to come back in the book of Jaquan, and here it is. And he shows him the picture, and he is getting invested in this. And he feels like I'm guessing he feels like he needs to be, because He doesn't want this to destroy everything. He doesn't want whatever is going to happen to destroy life as we know it. I thought that was cool. And I thought it was interesting to see the storylines that they included in this. We have Morden, who is working with the shadows, talking with Londo and that sort of thing. And then this this envoy coming and asking questions in the same episode. So it gave that kind of two sides to the coin. We got to see what Warden was doing. And we also got to see what this Earth guy was doing. I don't know exactly who he works for. Even if he said, which I'm not remembering, I still wonder exactly what his motivation was, all that stuff. And then them at the end of the episode, and I'm just going to say this much about it, them waiting for him to leave to have their discussion means that he is not in on all that. I had thoughts about him, but it was almost subverted at the end. And I think he's just there for the fact-finding mission. So again, I thought it really gives us a quick view into how everyone reacts to the view of the ship. And it's a good way to do it, to show us where everyone's head is at.
One, I think I would love a replica of the Book of Jacon, because I don't know how many are actual handwritten on there, or is a lot of it just blank pages to make it look. He talked about they do not do mass printing of this holy book. It is a hand copied. And I think, if I remember correctly, they write that, I know they've talked about in the past, before there was printing presses, if someone made a mistake on a handwritten, that the next copy would have the same mistake, because it has to be copied by copied. I do think it's interesting. He doesn't treat Jakar as a viable because it's this religious text, right? He feels this the same way as if someone was quoting the Bible as proof on why this is supposed to happen. It is that shadow. But in this case, not to pardon the pun, the idea that he's actually correct, right? He tells the story. The shadows came, they took over the world. They had this drawn, and they don't pay any attention to it. I want to go back to Londo's discussion with Morden, and he's done. Okay, I've used you. I'm not going to ghost you. I'm going to be upfront. I'm telling you upfront that we're breaking up. Move on. And then they have Morden returns his CDs that he had borrowed, and you clean out your drawer. They talk about, this is our part of the world. This is your part of the world, except for this little bitty world that we'll talk about in a minute. But then we find out that Borden is going to start dating one of Londo's frenemies. So I'll start with you, Karen. Let's talk about this. And I love the way he said, "We are gone till you ask us to come back," or something along that line. So Karen, go for it.
Yeah, and he made sure that Londo knew that, yeah, you might want to be out of the loop, but your friend Rifa doesn't want to be out of the loop. We're still together, quote unquote. I love that dating reference. That's cool. You exchange boxes. Here's all the stuff you left at my house. And I've done that a couple times. But Rifa, we knew that Rifa was a weasel. And he is all in with this dude. He doesn't care if there's an ulterior motive, as long as he gets what's his. And it looks like that's what Morden is doing, is saying, hey, we're still in this with Rifa, but I'm laying this out for you. We get this half and you get this half. And Rifa's already working on this planet. No worries, we don't need you anymore. And I think that is the beginning of the end for Londo in society, in Centauri society, because Rifa's going to climb the ladder way faster with Morden behind him. And it's like a sign to me that Londo his conscience is catching up with him. Again, it's going to take a lot for me to be invested in that character again. But this is a step, at least, that he's decided this isn't for him anymore. And now that you've taken out our main enemy, we don't need you anymore. But he is shaken to hear that Rifa's still working with him. And I think part of that is that he's not on board with the whole colonization of all these worlds thing. He wanted to conquer the Narn, and that was it. He just wanted to conquer the Narn and get his standing lifted in Centauri, I guess, politics. Is that what you could call it? So yeah, I think Londo knows that he started something that he shouldn't have. And Morden is just, he's confusing, but also so sinister in his harmlessness. He looks harmless, but he's not, definitely not. Yeah, and I'm guessing that he didn't really reveal himself. He stayed on the down low when he was on Babylon 5 because he's already been questioned by Sheridan, and we know that Sheridan has some doubts about him. And so, yeah, I'm thinking we're not going to see him on Babylon 5 as much. Again, that's just my conjecture. And the fact that, I don't know if I can put it into words, but he is just, he's one of those people. He's a true politician. He smiles at you and lures you in, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of darkness.
The end. Hello? Am I dead?
You hear my part, me going, where is my mute? Where is my mute? Go ahead, Lou.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised when Londo told Morton that he wanted to end their relationship, and Morton seemed pretty agreeable. I thought for sure he'd pull out that we've got this on you and this on you, and we're never letting you go. You're going to do what we want, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't go that direction. So that was a pleasant surprise. But if I was Londo, the instant he mentioned that, Morton mentioned that he was now dealing with Rifa,
Yes.
I'd be very nervous because we saw what he did to his friend in that previous episode. So that is, and except for if Rifa had been located on Babylon 5, I'm sure Morton would have gone to him instead of Londo. But that's not the way things played out. And Londo became the go-to guy because of the position that Babylon 5 was in, the strategic positioning, and the fact that Londo was be privy to all this information from the various other races. Now, I don't think it matters as much because Rifa's pretty high up on Centauri Prime, and he's obviously much more agreeable or has no conscience whatsoever about the means justifying the end. So that will be interesting to see how that plays out going forward. I'm confused about the map because I don't know. I kept on, okay, where's Earth on this map? Is it on the Centauri side or is it on the Shadow side? I had no clue. I'm assuming because Centauri is near Earth, relatively speaking, in the galaxy universe, that we must be on the side that Morton drew, but he made the kind of a squiggle across the screen. So maybe Earth, but no, we're on one of the outer arms. So we'd have to be all on that side. I'm just curious as to why space is a big place and the shadows control that half of the Milky Way. That's very interesting. So I don't know. I'm hoping that this whole map thing is going to come into focus more as the series progresses. And because we don't know the scope of this war, how big it is, but if it's a true galactic war, that will be, I don't know how the show could handle that, but that would be very interesting to see how that plays out. Of everything in the show, that was my biggest question, was that map. And I'm really curious to have that explored some more and to see what that's all about. So Yeah, and I just don't think that Lando's off the hook. If it's not Morton that's going to be pressuring him to do things, then I'm pretty sure Reef is going to come back and play. And so if you don't do this, your family might not have the protection that you thought they once had, blah, 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 or something like that. I don't think for a second Lando's off the hook as far as being free of any sort of entanglements.
Yeah, you can almost see the Godfather 3 scene. I thought I was out and they pulled me back in.
Yeah.
I love the way that Ed Wasson, I'm getting his last name wrong, but always has a smile. Like, okay. And hey, you want me to go away? I'll go away. I agree with you, Lou, and I've seen the whole series. That map was confusing to me a little bit.
Yeah.
It would have been, and I guess it would have been too much, but okay, here's Earth, here's Centauri, but to explain, basically, in general terms, here's our part of the hemisphere, here's your part of the hemisphere, and the only thing carve out is this little world. I do love the way that Peter Jurassic played the not happy, because he's suspecting that this is not a good scene.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, later he goes, I don't know, what does your ships look like? And right, that's not important. We don't need to talk about that now.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think they are setting us up for something with the shadows and Centauri. Let's go to, speaking of, we get the introduction of Jason. We've talked a little bit about Marcus as the ranger, and he asks for help. There is this colony where they are training rangers. We find out that a lot of the Minbari warrior cast doesn't think we need rangers, which makes sense. They're like, no, we're the warriors. Why would we train other people? And just because you're religious or worker caste, you can't be a warrior. And versus the Rangers are be all that you can be. Anyone who wants to join, even humans, which always bothered me, that how do you find humans that want to be part of the Rangers? And I guess that proves they have been preparing for this war for a long time. So Marcus says, we need your help. They go to Sheridan and Delenn, and then Sheridan's, I'd go, but I don't have a ship, or I don't know what I could do. And we get the plucked chicken, which is what JMS says he thinks the White Star looks like. He never liked the design of the ship. He says it looks to him like a plucked chicken. I thought that was funny because I thought it looked pretty cool.
Yeah, I liked it too.
Yeah, I thought it looked pretty nice. We get this ship, and I thought of you, Lou. It is a small ship that is able to make its own jump gates.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with you, Lou. Let's talk about this. We've got to go this mission. We get a brand new ship that is it has a crew of Minbari who are not warriors. They don't speak English, and all of a sudden they give Sheridan control of the ship, which is a little bit of a hand wave. He and Susan have to leave. I don't know why they both had to go, but let's visit that whole storyline. We'll start with you, Lou, and then we'll go to Karen.
Just from the top of the storyline, I was confused why Susan went to, because usually when the captain leaves a ship, he puts the first officer in command. So why didn't Garibaldi go with Sheridan? And Garibaldi was not used much in this episode, so I was also disappointed with that. Though I watched on my rewatch, I just paid attention to him in the background, and he was doing a lot of cool, funny facial expressions, the way Garibaldi rolls his eyebrows and whatnot. So I thought he did a lot of great facial acting, even though he didn't have a lot of lines this episode. I was a little confused as to why Susan was there, to be honest. But it is more of a military operation, and she obviously has that background. So I guess that's why they went with that. And they're just looking for ways to make her character have a bigger role. But the White Star was cool. I liked the design. I thought it looked pretty neat. And I thought it was an interesting touch that the crew is all the religious cast. I'm wondering how that plays with their philosophy on violence, and because you don't often have, and I don't know what the equivalent is for these people, but I took it as you basically got like a bunch of fathers or priests or whatever as warriors, which is interesting and almost fanatical. And in a way, it makes sense because it's been set up over the last few episodes of the second season that the shadows are like the devils. I mentioned the Arthur C. Clarke story, Arthur Childhood's End, where the aliens actually turned out to be the devils. And we have the ones who seem to be the angels. So we've got this like galactic battle between good and evil. So it makes sense that the White Star is populated with a religious group. I don't know. Maybe I'm pulling too far on the threads on that, but I couldn't help but go there because of what's been set up in the last season. So I liked all of that. And it was interesting that the crew doesn't speak English. I don't know if that's going to be a running thing through the series. I can see in a way because the cast is getting quite large. So I think it was just a cost-cutting exercise that they said, we've added Marcus and we've got so many cast members on Babylon 5 now. We really can't afford to have all these extras speaking, because as soon as you utter a line, your pay scale goes up and that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they stay in that mode where they can't talk English. On the plus side, it gives Lanier more to do because he's acting as a liaison between the Sheridan and the crew. So I like that. And I can see why fans of Babylon 5, because I think this is an ongoing thing, would rag on DS9 copying 5, because now just Babylon 5 has the White Star. DS9 had to get the Defiant, and so they had to have a ship to do other things off the space station. So the parallels are definitely there, and that's interesting as well. And I'm glad that the jump technology is a bit clearer now, and it was a cool maneuver by Sheridan to do a jump gate within a jump gate. I liked that quite a bit. I thought that was a cool solution to that problem. And it's also good that he's thinking out of the immediate situation and not revealing strengths the ship has unless they have to. So he didn't just jump. He used a jump gate instead of jumping. Yeah, I'm all on board with these jump gates now. Still don't know where they came from, but or who invented that technology. Maybe it was the Vorlons. I don't know. Or maybe it was the Shadows, or maybe it was both of them. I don't know. We'll see. But that was all cool. And I think that this will be an interesting device going forward in the series. And I wonder how often they're actually going to use it. And I'm curious to see how that plays out. So yeah, it's a cool addition. And again, like I said, the show's expanding, which it has to do because the story's getting bigger, and I'm really enjoying this part of the story quite a bit.
So I did want to mention that he did mention, Stravinsky, that they did get a higher budget this season, and so that's why they were able to put it to some of the sets. I do think that the White Star is a neat addition, and I do think it gave Bill Mumy some nice moments, right? Like at the end, he goes, I had no idea this would happen for the monastery. Maybe I should go back and do another class to prepare them. Yeah, I think this is nice. By the way, as you talked about the cast, we noticed that Zach is in the opening credits as well. So he's been promoted to full-time regular, which does not mean they're in every episode, because it is a big cast. And Karen, White Star, going to the jump gate, giving your thoughts.
You're muted, Karen.
Hi.
Hey.
I think it served a lot of purposes in this episode. I think we got to see that he has something else at his disposal to fight the war. We saw that it was a combination of Minbari and Vorlon technology. So we see that they're much more advanced, as in they can create their own jump gates, because we have been told that there are ships that do that, but we hadn't seen one yet. And it shows a little bit more about the Minbari. And there's two things about that, is that they definitely don't want the warrior caste involved because they've very much subverted the hierarchy on Minbar. They took an extra seat on the council, so they're very much up to something, and I'm sure that they made sure that they were out of the loop on this ship. And who else does she trust but her religious caste? And I love that Lanier was almost hyped up. He had all this adrenaline in his system after everything. That was cool. And it also gave us that glimpse into how Sheridan thinks. That he always thinks of ways to do things that no one has thought of before. There's an easy way for us to do this if we can pull it off. We can destroy that ship. The only way we can destroy it is to pull this maneuver on them that they're not expecting. And we've heard about that in his whole thing against the Minbari war. But now we've seen it, that he has pulled something out of his butt and he has destroyed this ship, which is something that is unheard of, them destroying a shadow vessel, because they're all powerful. They can cloak. They have everything at their disposal. I also liked seeing that the shadow ship didn't destroy them right out because they had never seen a vessel like this before. So they were just pretty much trying to find its capabilities out by teasing them with a shot across their bow. It was very cool. I think it's a great addition. And with all the other storylines in this episode, it's telling us a lot of things without telling us. And it's giving us more story than it's actually looking like on the screen. Again, very cool. I love Lanier's reaction to everything. I like the cast there on the ship, and it's awesome. And also it shows how secretive the Vorlons are, that the shadow people have never seen one of these ships before, because the Vorlons are like way on the download. They don't want anyone to see any of their business. So very cool. It gave us a lot of information, told us a lot about character, John's character, the Lanier's character, all of these beats having to do with this one element being introduced.
Do you like the idea? Talk to me about why you think they just. I want to go back to where John talks about that because the Rangers are his responsibility, he feels like they've got to get involved. I thought that was I still agree with you guys. I'm not sure why him and Susan had to go both to do that. It is funny to see Susan intuitively be able to figure out the things, using some of the controls. It appears that John is going to be much active with the Rangers. So let's talk about that, and then let's talk about this war council he built up. And so, Karen, I'll let you continue. The idea that he is taking a more active role, leadership as the Rangers, and him setting together this formal organization that they're going to meet every 2 weeks to start out with. Everyone's going to come. That way we'll get. And we find out that Susan's known everything that's going on for a while, which made for a very funny scene. Let's talk about that, Karen, then you,
Yeah,
Lou.
there were actually a lot of funny scenes that had to do with this. I think leaving Garibaldi back on Babylon 5 set up this way for him to kind of make sure that Andawi didn't learn about anything. He did that double speak. If I didn't want to know about it, I should know about it. He's talking about all this stuff, and Andawi is barely following him. And that set up for that funny scene. We see that Susan got a lot of nice lines in this episode. And them going on the ship together, I don't quite understand it either, except the fact that Sheridan trusts her implicitly. And I don't know that he's there yet with Garibaldi, although he trusts Garibaldi. He leans on him, but he and Susan have that kind of bond where he would say, hey, back me up, come and back me up on this. I think he needs someone to go with him. And so picking Susan, I guess, makes sense to me. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on what
staff
we
meeting. Staff meeting.
Okay, the staff
war
meeting.
council.
Thank you, thank
war
you,
council.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. I also thought it was a little funny that Franklin, we've complained about him being part of it before, and he actually addresses that. Yeah, I know I'm part of it, but I'm really not in the loop ever. And so that was a funny beat too, especially for us that have actually discussed that. Why is he in the room for those things? And I do get a sense now, after seeing him interact with all the Narn that have the escapees, the refugees, he does have a part to play. If there are issues that need to be addressed, then they need someone in the loop to be their doctor, quote unquote. Like the mob has their doctor. We've talked about the mob before. They always have a doctor that will come and do things and not put it on the books, charge them under the table, that sort of thing. So I think that's where they're heading with Franklin. And I like that they did that kind of fade to black where we see that Delenn is going to explain to him what's happening and bring him in a little further. So there's a lot of things that are making more sense to me through that whole story. I love the war council thing. They've already established they're going to have this little cabal and united to find out what's really going on Earth. And since we got that scene with the Psy Cop and the, what is she, a senator or something, and Morden, we got that scene there. The EarthForce, all the Earth stuff is going to tie in to all this. And so having them have those two functions and them coming together, I think is going to make for a stronger war council. And I'm putting that in air quotes, war council, because I think they're going to serve a lot of functions as a group. Also, I would love to see Jakar brought into that war council, or at least be more in the loop with things. He's not an ambassador. He doesn't have a conflict of interest there. And I think he has a vested interest in what happens. So I would love to see them bring him in. We've already seen that Sheridan values him. So that would be awesome.
I've already talked about my feelings about Susan and being on the White Star instead of Garibaldi, so I'll skip over that part of it, discussion again. But the council meeting, I liked it from a storytelling perspective, because one of the most frustrating things is watching shows is where people withhold information from each other. So it appears that they're going to be open lines of communication between everybody going forward. We'll see if that actually happens. I have my doubts, but I do that. I wish that they had used a round table. I noticed that the ends of the table were rounded, but I thought that a round table for that scene would have been so fitting, like Knights of the Round Table. So I wish they would have done that, but it was a good scene. And it's interesting that Sheridan and Delenn had the ends of the table and kind of left Garibaldi off to the side. And I hope that's not a symbol for the season, because maybe I'm reading too much into how little he was used in this episode, but because I thought he was almost a co-equal with those two. Sheridan's the de facto leader for sure, and Kosh was not there at all, was he? I don't think. So that's also interesting why he was not there. And the scene on Earth sets up some very interesting dynamics, because I'm curious to know whether or not Earth knew that the shadows through Morton were involved in the Centauri Narn War? And if so, that speaks to a element of the Earth government that obviously has a very radical agenda. And the fact that the Psi Corp was there at the end as well just makes the whole thing even more nefarious, intriguing. Throws the and it, I have to be careful with the Psycops or Core, whatever they are. I don't want to take one individual and have him a representative of the whole Psycops thing, because I'm sure that within that branch, there's members that actually think what they're doing is important and they have a higher purpose. It'll be interesting to see what side of the line Bester falls on that, because while I think he is definitely driven to protect the Psycorps, I don't know if he's on board with this whole Shadow War thing that's going on and the deal with them and Morton. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It's definitely going to bring a lot more intrigue into the show going forward. So we're getting a more clearer picture of the players involved, which is always good, because it's been nebulous as to what players on Earth are involved with whatnot. Now we're seeing that the actual government to some degree is involved. And I found it interesting that the seat of the government was in Geneva. I would have thought it would have been in the US, maybe in the old United Nations buildings had been repurposed or something like that. So that was interesting. I highly doubt that would take place in the future, but we'll see. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff being set up in that final scene. It was a nice capper to a premiere episode, and it promises for exciting things for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think Geneva has always been considered a neutral location and a neutral country, and also because of all the Swiss banks. Maybe that's why you think that would end up being, when they became one government, that they wanted, Beijing probably would have wanted it to be there, and the US would have wanted it to be in the US, and the Soviet Union or Russia would have wanted there, and so Switzerland's a neutral port. That's just my theory. That's not anything canon. Yeah, I have a question on how quickly can Morden move from one place to another. I assume shadow vessels are pretty quick. That's why he can move so quickly. He was on Babylon 5. Now he's there. But the envoy was able to get from Babylon 5 to Earth during that time period. So I guess that isn't that strange. Yeah, he is making deals everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I have joked on this is a serious subject, but not a serious subject. After 9/11, which was horrible, but a lot of stadiums quit allowing you to bring in your own food to watch a baseball game for security reasons. And I'm not saying there wasn't security reasons, but it's also, hey, we can increase our profit, because now then everyone's going to buy a hot dog from us instead of bringing their own hot dogs. Mm-hmm. So the member of the Psycorps, maybe we can twist this planet security to our own needs, was very on brand with this. Many people will sell their soul for power. And that's what you feel like they're doing. And you wonder, is Mr. Morton just, how many deals are he making with, and how many people is he using to manipulate to what they want? And we don't know what their goal is. What do they plan on? If they don't want domination, they only want their side of the hemisphere, so to speak. What is their ultimate goal? And we just don't know at this point.
Let me ask a question.
Sure.
From what we've learned about Morden and the Shadow and all the deals he's making, I get the feeling that the Centauri are naive and they're being used, and they don't know what's going to happen. They're seizing upon it for their own gain, and they don't realize that something bigger is happening. Is the same thing happening to Earth? And I'm not asking you to answer that question. How naive are the Earth people? And is the fact that the Psycorps involved, like, do they know more than what the Centauri know, because they can read Morden, or can they not read Morden? There's a lot of questions that brings up for me. Is Earth going to be taking advantage of the Centauri, where Morden doesn't give a crap about the Centauri? He could wipe them off the face of the universe without an issue. He's using them to make it look like they're rather harmless. And I really do wonder if Earth is on that same level. Do they understand how nefarious the shadows are? Or do they get it and the shadows consider them not an equal, but on a higher level as the Centauri? That opens up a lot of questions for me.
Lou, any thoughts on her observations?
That's a good point about the Cyclops, not whether or not they can read Morton. And it leads me to a further thought about Morton. I'm hoping we're going to find out what hold the shadows have over him that he would be doing this. He's basically, again, I'm going to go back to my religious allegories. He's Judas Iscariot. He's selling his soul for 12 pieces of silver or whatever. So it'll be interesting to find out what the hold is on him for sure. And I hope we do find that out at some point. And I'm liking the overall dynamics of the show starting to feel more like the long serialized story that we've been expecting over the first two seasons. And it's been there, but it's for some reason, and maybe it's just because I'm becoming familiar and comfortable with the universe, but the serialized aspect of it is coming in a lot stronger. We had little tidbits thrown through this episode, like we had the system where the Rangers are was the Markab system, which we know is the race that was wiped out by the plague. There's a moment between Sheridan and Delenn where she says that no ship can handle the shadow ship, and he says that I've heard that before, which is obviously a reference to him taking out a Minbari ship. And I think there was another kind of reference to something before that struck me, and I've lost it now. But it's all these little things are adding up to, it's just making the show more interesting now because all these little breadcrumbs are starting to come together. And I'm really starting to really get into the vibe of the show now.
I think a lot of those are questions that will be answered. I think a lot of them are the right questions, as we talked about when we did Farscape. And I remember at this point when I'm watching, I'm feeling a lot of the confusion too. I remember being very surprised to see Morton there in the US or on Earth going, oh my goodness, what games are he playing? And to answer y'all's question, I do think the envoy was a very honest man. He was trying to do, and in fact, the senators, no, why are you doing this?
Dowie, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I really like this.
So is there anything you can talk to that about, or should you not say anything about it regarding Earth versus Centauri?
Yeah, I think they're both very naive.
Okay.
I think I talked about this before, the idea that when you watch Doctor Who, there's always some kind of human that wants to work with the Cybermen, thinking that they're going to be excluded from becoming a Cyberman, and yet the Cybermen always betray them. And we go back to the scorpion and the frog, right?
Yep.
It's their nature. And I do think they're both being a little naive, that let's bring back the great Buck Owens, I've got a tiger by the tail. I think they don't realize what they have, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are both very insightful thoughts, and can see that to continue.
Yeah, I don't think it's been established yet exactly what Earth is getting in return from the shadow people. And I don't know what the shadow people want from Earth either. And I don't know what the Cyclops are up to either. So we just know that they're all partners in crime at this point. Yeah.
I do get the vibe that the Psychor want to rule. They want to make sure that they have a hand in Earth government 100%, because they feel like they're superior to non-telepaths. So if they can advance that agenda, I think that they'll jump on whatever they find. But again, just speculation.
Yeah, and I think we can assume it's some kind of power that they're using the shadows to get them power. And so we'll see what goes from there. And the question is, were they involved with Santiago's assassination? Or did they just come in after the fact? We will have to find out that.
And the whole Mars colony thing.
Exactly.
We can't forget that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Any final thoughts about the episode?
Solid.
Yep. Good start.
All right, let's give ratings. Karen, you said solid. So on a scale 1 to 10.
I'll give it a 9. Amazing new cast members.
Oh, very nice. Lou?
I like that. I'll give it 9. Dancing our last little dances.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was a great little line. We have danced our last little dance. I'm going to give it 9 out of 10 Minbari fighting pikes.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I just think it's great. Yeah. Yeah, it is it's a cool special effect. Our friend Charles, who's been on the podcast, has one. He says it doesn't collapse, though.
Oh, that's a shame.
Which would have been very cool to see if they could have done that.
I thought you were going to say it doesn't collapse that quickly.
Yeah, I did notice that when he was finished with it, he took it down to his side out of camera range.
Yeah.
And then he came back up and he didn't have it, which means that he collapsed it. But honestly, I think he just dropped it instead of doing the special effect.
Yeah, that's probably a good point. All right.
It was funny, though.
Yes. Okay. Karen, we got a couple emails, didn't we?
I have one.
Okay.
From Nathan. And he writes, "This is an exciting episode, but also a primary example of the first draft problems. It needs a rewrite or two. It irritated me back then, and even more so because besides these problems I've noticed, the rest of the episode is great. Ivanova's shortcut is great, but presented very awkwardly. No concern that someone else might find out. She knows everything clearly. The scene needed some concern or question or a point of confusion on Ivanova's part. Why do they need Sheridan for the mission of shooting a few mines? Why wait if time is of the essence? There's no need for a military commander for that. Minbari have already piloted the ship and do that thoroughly throughout the episode. They also know the weapons. The episode required a couple more lines about wanting to introduce Sheridan to the ship on an easier mission, which incidentally required a commander with combat experience in case there were more than just a couple of mines. Next point, why in Valen's name Delenn answers all in good time when Sheridan asks what else can White Star do after they notice the shadow vessel. They're entering combat on a ship John doesn't know. Delenn should list every capability of the ship faster than Eminem could rap, instead of giving an answer for the sake of the mystery in the story. Same with Shadow Ship being indestructible. What was the alliance of Minbari with other races in the first ones was about 1,000 years ago? Were younger races just caterers for older ones or cheerleaders? If they fought shadows in a war, then they could fight their ship somehow. I know that JMS wanted to increase the sense of danger, but there's no need to jump into absolutes. Just say that those ships can easily destroy whole fleets, which we've seen they indeed can, so one small ship has zero chance of survival. All those things just scream writing shortcuts to me. I like when they are smoothed over. Finally, there are several things which modern first-time viewers said, which are surprising to me because my understanding on the first watch was different. But I also wasn't exposed to a lot of tropes of sci-fi and fantasy. So I wanted to ask Lou and Karen, what do you think shadow ships do when they shimmer and disappear? It wasn't quite clear before. This episode gives an answer, and I think Jesse can give it too. But I wanted to hear your guys' option first, and if it has changed at any point. With regards, Nathan.
It could be one of two things. It's either their version of jumping, or they have some sort of cloaking technology. So I think it's one of the two. I think it's more likely it's a cloak, but
Same here. And I think that may be why they're so formidable, because they can do that hidden thing and they sneak up on you and you don't know they're there until you're gone. So I really do think that's part of the reason they're so powerful and such a threat.
Yeah, I have not thought about that, except in that it's a living ship, similar to the Vorlons. I think that's the reason why I thought that, but I do think they must have some kind of stealth technology. Yes.
or third
Yeah.
possibility is they're time jumping.
Yeah.
So it could be that as well. But at this point, I think that's a more speculative guess than the other two, which are more conservative and more likely within the established framework of the series to date. But if we get into this whole time traveling stuff that we got a glimpse of with Sinclair, then that answer might become stronger. I just wanted to respond to Nathan's issues with the rough spots. I don't think they're really rough spots myself. I think that as a writer like JMS, you look at a scene and said, what is the purpose of this moment? And the purpose of the moment with Susan was to show that she's a competent, highly professional person. So any of the other issues about how, if she can see all this stuff, how many other people can see it, they weigh that and say this moment for Susan is more important than all that other stuff. And then the thing with the ship is writers like to leave themselves wiggle room. So if they would say that the ship can do this, and then in episode 7, all of a sudden the ship can do this, and so why didn't you tell me that before? It's because they didn't think of it at the time when they were writing this episode. They didn't know exactly, JMS didn't know exactly what he wanted to do with that ship. And that's why they don't lock themselves down, and they rarely will explain in any science fiction show the technology for several reasons. One is because it's just boring. And the other, they just don't want to paint themselves in a corner unless they have to.
And I also think it's very on brand for her to be mysterious, because that's very much part of the culture and her personality. So I thought it was a nice little moment. And I see in logic reasons why Nathan has that concern, but I think for storytelling purposes, it gives us a nice little moment. And yeah, I agree. Susan is smarter than the average bear, to use an out-of-date reference. Mm-hmm. And that to show, why didn't you tell me you knew everything? You didn't ask me. I figured when it was time you would reveal it. And so it gave her a really lovely moment.
So are you saying she doesn't put all her eggs in one picnic basket?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Okay. You read my mind. Perfect.
And also could be that she picked up on the stuff because she is a psychic, and she just might get like a spidey sense tingle that something's not cool here, and then so she goes and investigates. And that's how she knows.
Yeah, and I love her confidence because she is the second in command. She does have to keep her not literal ear to the ground, but she has to be aware. And I love that quiet. And if there's stuff going on that I don't know about, that's when you should worry.
Keep your finger on the pulse.
Exactly.
Of what's happening. Definitely. I think that's a good way to think about it.
All right. So Texas a la Shock, which I thought I forwarded through, but it may just not have come through yet, said this. So what, you did get it?
Yeah.
Lou, do you want to read it so they don't have to hear my voice?
Your voice is fine.
Okay.
But I can do it if you want.
It's up to you.
Let me see if I can open my mailbox and find it.
That's okay. I have it right in front of me, so I'll go.
Okay.
So, Texas a la Shock. So what can be said of this episode except it was necessary? That says quite a bit. Vorlons are not omnipotent. It actually takes effort to use some of their abilities. And we get to the White Star. This is one of my favorite ships in sci-fi. Fast, nimble, and powerful. And in Sheridan's hands, practically a miracle worker. This is where Sheridan's experience fighting the Mbari comes in handy, ironically enough, to their benefit. In the other plot, the one Garibaldi has made a point of not telling himself about, we have an EarthForce intelligence agent coming to investigate the ship Keffer's obsessive search found. We do have to give props to JMS for working a character that's forced on him into the actual plot like that. Delenn knows what it is, but can't say anything. Londo recognizes it from his dream, but appears to suspect it might have something to do with Mr. Warden's associates, no doubt making his break from them even more prudent in his mind, or would if Lord Rifa hadn't thrown a monkey wrench into that plan. And Jakar finally has someone who will listen to the warnings he's been given all year. Not that it matters. It was never about finding out what they are. It was about finding out if anyone recognized them. And now they plan on using this to accelerate a program, quote unquote, of some sort. What that is, we'll just have to see. But Sheridan's starting one of his own, a war council, to get everyone up to speed and ready for what's to come. And yes, that includes Franklin. He's already in on Sheridan's other little conspiracy. Keeping him out of this one would probably not be too practical. That's all I have for now. So you see you the next time, because what good is the next episode without an audience? This is Texas Alashak signing off. So thank you, Texas, as always. We appreciate you. And yes, it was fun. We had a lot of fun. What kind of head of security would I be if I let people like me know things I'm not supposed to know? I know what I know because I have to know it. But if I don't have to know it, I don't tell me or let anyone else tell me either. And then when the guys, oh, I'm not allowed to go see Jakar, as the head of security, I could tell you, I won't know you're doing it because you won't tell yourself. Exactly. You live a very complicated life. Nice. Karen, how can someone find you?
I am at Eleveria on Twitter, where I talk about donuts today, apparently, with one of my favorite character actors. His last name is Stack, and now I've forgotten. Brian Stack.
Okay.
And I also post a lot of Wordle scores on there. But you can find me there. I talk about all kinds of things. Talk to me back. And also my blog is at alliesstuff.com.
All right. And Lou, talk about our YouTube channel and your YouTube channel. And was there any highlights? I forgot. I thought we haven't had a new episode posted since our last recording.
No, I'm still working on editing the Tragically Hip one, so that hopefully will be up this week. Just before I get into my spiel, I just wanted to mention 2 points I forgot about the episode. Even though Jakar only had one scene, I just loved the way the actor played it when the aide asked him about the ship, and he has that sigh of acknowledgement, or finally somebody's going to listen to me about this thing that I've been talking about. I just thought he played that scene really well. And the other thing I just want to mention, because I know we're not going YouTube very often, comments, but Mr. Martecki had a great comment, because at the end of the second season, we had the voiceover from Susan, which is interesting because that carried over into the third season, now that I think about it. But he says that adds a lot to Babylon 5 being framed as an in-universe mythos being retold. And so it makes sense that we get like this omniscient viewpoint of what's going on. I just thought that was a really great comment, Mr. Martecki. Thank you very much for putting that up on YouTube. As for myself, you can find me on YouTube at Lou's Reviews, where you'll find these episodes, of course, plus our JKL Media episodes. Our upcoming one will be about the Canadian rock band Tragically Hip. I also have interviews with writers and from the Writers Podcast, as well as the Stephen King podcast. And you can find me on Twitter at Lou W. Sitzmore or at S King Podcast.
And you can write to the show at jklb5podcast@gmail.com. I am on Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW. Would love to hear what you think. We also would appreciate if you go to iTunes to rate and review the podcast and tell a friend about it so that they can go through this Babylon 5 journey with us. Lou, Karen, we've got another one. We're starting season 3. I'm excited to continue the journey, and thank you both for being great companions as we go through this universe together.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a great host.
Yeah. Listeners, please take care. Be safe. We will be back next week. And as we're recording this, it is actually Mother's Day. If your mom is available, pick up the phone and call her. And if you are a mother, please, absolutely happy Mother's Day. And Karen, thank you. Lou, thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Good.
Scene.